Hey guys, I wanted to talk to you about the most recent sort of development in a chain of events that I guess started back before the Larken Rose v. Adam Kokesh debate on the ethics and philosophical soundness and strategy and tactics of Adam Kokesh's campaign for not president. Without rehashing the entire thing from start to finish, I guess the TLDR is that Kokesh is running and if elected, plans to sign an executive order that will put the federal government into sort of a state of bankruptcy where its assets are disseminated as fairly as possible, and the power and control exhibited upon us from the federal government will be sort of dispersed down to the state and local level. Larken Rose's objection to that strategy is that it sends the wrong message. It says that the way to achieve freedom, dear general blue-pilled public, is to vote for a specific new kind of master making promises that the president literally doesn't have the power to keep. And, you know, you're basically you're teaching people that the libertarian way of doing things, the way to achieve freedom is to vote for another guy to win power and have him help you or grant you or sign in an order that will give you more freedom, which is, in Larken's opinion and kind of my opinion as well, not what we should be teaching people. So there was that sort of fundamental disagreement. And the debate that they had on Anarchast, I didn't think went very well at all. I don't think it was educational. I don't think people were able to learn very much really about either side's opinion. And afterwards, I had a follow-up conversation with Larken Rose on this channel, which I can link in the description for you, where we discussed my Not Governor campaign for Not Governor of Texas, which took a different strategy, one that, you know, I'm not running to win to sign something to free you. I'm simply carrying a message from the people that says they have withdrawn their consent to be governed by this system. The Declaration of Individual Independence is in its final draft form, will be released as soon as we can shore up a few remaining things. And I think, and I agree with Larken, that strategy teaches a much better lesson to the general public, which is why I did it that way. So I'm not sure if he's announced publicly yet, but I'm happy to announce that Adam Kokesh was recently here in studio recording a new high-quality audiobook performance of his Freedom book. And it's in mastering now, so that's awesome. It's going to take a fair amount of work to get it professionally shored up, but that's in the works. Anyway, so while he was here for over the course of several days, one of the evenings we had a good sit-down talk where, you know, off camera, away from other people watching and listening and, you know, interrupting and turning it into like an emotional like conflict, we just kind of hashed out the differences in strategy. We kind of went through all the nitpicky details in a way that I really wish that debate on Anarchast could have gone. And so I learned things that I wish I could have learned from that Anarchast debate. And after my talk with Larken, I wanted to sort of update everyone on what I learned and where I stand currently. So what I learned is when Larken and when myself criticized Adam Kokesh for his strategy of sending the wrong message to people, teaching people the wrong thing, or you know, telling people with his actions that the way to achieve freedom is to participate in this political process and elect a person which will bring freedom. I don't think that he disagrees with much of that, certainly some of it. I think he believes that you can achieve more freedom through the political process. I kind of disagree with that. I think it should only be used as a podium to stand behind to reach more people, to catch the attention of the people that are already paying attention to that process, to bring them out of that system and make them realize that the political system is an invalid one that acts in violation of their consent. But what I realized and what he kind of told me was that, and the words I'm choosing here are not his, these are my words, and I think the words that I'm finding are more harsh than I want. I wish I could find softer words for it. he cares less about teaching the mass public freedom than he does in creating an environment of more freedom. Now, that's not to say he doesn't care about changing hearts and minds. It's not to say he doesn't want and isn't constantly every day of his life trying to wake people up in that way. But his campaign strategy, I believe, places the actual changing of minds and sort of red-pilling the public at a lower priority than creating freedom in the environment. So whereas I think my strategy is one of, I think the fastest way to achieve freedom is to wake as many people up as I can. And once we hit a critical mass of woke people, then the environment of freedom will necessarily flow out of that. And maybe we can talk in another video about why I maybe think that's better. But he thinks the other way around. He thinks that the fastest way to achieve freedom is to not worry about necessarily as priority one changing hearts and minds, because that's a really, really hard thing to do. And there's a lot of people out there that will likely never be convinced. And likely it will be a very long-term strategy involving peaceful parenting of entire generations to wake enough people to create an environment of freedom, maybe my way. So rather than target that as his primary activism, and see, I used the word when I was talking to him, I was like, okay, so you're okay with sort of like deceiving the masses as to your true intentions and to not really mention, hardcore attempt to red pill the masses. You just want to let them believe in what they already believe, which is the way to control your environment is to participate in electoral politics and to elect somebody that will change the environment in the way that you want it to be changed. And so I think he would say that rather than try and red pill the world, let them believe what they already believe. And if I can get them to vote for me, and if I can win, and if I can dissolve the federal government, then we have created an environment containing more freedom without having, or sort of with like sidestepping the massive challenge of making people believe in the freedom. So those are the two strategies, and that's what I wanted to kind of talk. I don't think that was really made clear in the debate and in any of the talks and videos that have come since. I don't think, at least to me, Kokesh's strategy was not clear to me as it is now. So the strategies are teach people, red pill people, wake people up, win hearts and minds, teach people what freedom and consent and liberty actually means. And from that will flow a society that demands more freedom. And I prefer that strategy because I think it will stick a lot longer than if I just sort of get laws passed or, laws repealed, let's say, that creates an environment of more freedom because, the next time there's some catastrophe or something that scares everybody, all the people that haven't been taught liberty and freedom and consent will probably jump right back to demanding centralized government protection. So my strategy is to win people's brains. Kokesh's strategy with his campaign is to win the environment. So it's two different targets, two different strategies for attempting to create freedom. One attempts to sort of, and I say trick, but I don't think he's trying to trick anybody, because if you ask him, he'd tell you that he thinks the government is immoral, it's a monstrosity, it's an invalid system. So trick is the wrong word, but, and I wouldn't even say a lie by omission, but it's somewhere in there of, if the masses believe this, okay, they believe that. And I'm going to use that false belief that they probably shouldn't have and that one day he hopes he can cure them of to create an environment with more freedom in it by localizing the immoral control of government. I like to see as many people actually doing things in the world to create more freedom as possible, whatever it is they're driven to do, however it is they're driven to do it. So my general position is one of, you're doing something. It doesn't matter if I agree with it or not. You're working towards freedom. I hope your strategy works, and I hope it works better than mine. I'm going to do the best I can, do the best you can. The only time I have issue, the only time I sort of put my foot down and say I disagree with that is if I see that something you're doing is doing the opposite, is slowing the progress towards freedom down in any way. And the only thing that I can think might be slowing freedom down in his strategy is that he's just reinforcing, he's standing as a libertarian, the party that's supposedly the party of principle, the principle of freedom, of individual agency over all, the non-aggression principle. He's wearing that label and then telling people to participate in government to achieve freedom. So he's reinforcing, he's using a label that is very important to me, one that I'm working every day of my life to clarify. Like somebody said earlier today on Facebook, like they said, would a libertarian state allow X, Y, and Z? I said, libertarian state is an oxymoron. It's a banana octopus. It's contradictory. Those two terms are contradictory. There can be no such thing as a libertarian state, because something, a voluntary form of government wouldn't be called government, wouldn't be called a state. It would just be a group of people working together. That would be libertarian. It would be a libertarian group of friends or group of associates. There wouldn't be a state involved. So to use the libertarian label and reinforce the message of working and using the state to achieve freedom, I feel like kind of makes my job harder. How much harder, though? Probably not much at all. Because he's right. The masses already believe that if they want to change their environment to get more freedom, they got to participate in politics. So it's not like he's teaching them something they didn't already know that was wrong. He's just kind of leaving that lesson for later. You guys keep believing that dumb stuff. I'll be over here making freedom. So that's kind of my position on it. Like, I wish he wasn't sort of reinforcing statism to sort of sidestep the issue to get more freedom, but he could be doing so much worse. So I hope his strategy works. I hope, if nothing else, he uses that immoral podium of the electoral politics running for president to get the attention of a few people that wouldn't have otherwise heard the message, to actually go down sort of my strategy of actually waking people up. Because I think there's a lot more chance that he's going to get a couple people's attention along the way trying to achieve his not presidency than he will actually winning the not presidency, than he will even, if he does win the presidency, signing an executive order using power the president position doesn't have to dissolve the federal government. I think there's a lot higher chance that along the way in his attempts to do that, he might catch a couple people's attention and wake them up. And so in that, I support him. I'm certainly not his enemy. I am happy to support his activism. I'll be the loud guy in the background going, hey guys, remember, the system is invalid. The system is immoral. It exists in violation of your consent, and no matter who you vote for will attempt to control you and tax you and rob you, and this is not the way we achieve freedom.